can tell all the stories you want to tell. It won't change what happened. You can't rewrite the past. If you live in fantasy forever, you'll lose yourself in the story.
That is the single most depressing sentence I've ever heard in any piece of fiction. Nothing compares to the overwhelming burst of emotions emitted by this dialogue when I'd first heard it. And when you all hear the insight as to what it means, where it came from, and who it refers to, you'd agree with me when I say that it not only perfectly encapsulates a character, but rather their rise and downfall too. Well, where is this from then? If you're familiar with my channel, you'd know that I have a fascination with the multiversal projects put out on Markiplier's channel. He's had and played a large number of characters over the years. They're all personas of sorts, or at least started off as such. The most popular of these are Darkiplier and Wilford Warstash, also known as William. The former is the antithesis or more commonly known quote-unquote evil version of Mark, while the latter started off as a manic news reporter with cartoon-style logic and eccentric personality traits that were implemented to simply get a laugh out of the audience watching. For those unaware though, these two, among others, got themselves a proper backstory with the most lore-heavy series on this channel yet, called Who Killed Markiplier. The line spoken at the beginning of this video directly relates to Wilford, but we can't appreciate what we have now if we don't take a look back. So, join me as we dissect the tragedy of this sentence. And viewer beware, it'll get intense real quick. The world of Who Killed Markiplier is initially a weird one, being a narrative where we, the viewer, are a character. It all starts off when things are set in motion by a fictionalized version of Markiplier, known as Actor Mark, that has access to forces beyond his control. Or rather, those forces have access to him. He and William had grown up in a mansion that inhabited a gateway of sorts for dark forces that desired a way out of their confinement. The longer you stayed there, the worse things got for you as the whispers of these otherworldly forces made their way into your thoughts. Due to being raised there, Mark and William never grew aware of the effects that the house had on them. However, when Mark's wife, Celine, came into the picture, she was able to pick up on the forces around her and eventually left Mark both physically and romantically for William as they fled the house and left Mark there. All alone, depressed, and at his most vulnerable was when the darkness was able to channel a path to Mark.
His wife left him, his friend betrayed him. This thing whispers like, that's not fair. That's not fair. No, that's not fair. No, you're right. No, that's not fair. Why should they be happy? No, of course. No, they shouldn't be happy. Maybe you should do something about them not being happy. Maybe you should set something up to make sure that they'll never be happy again. And it's just this day by day step of like the longer you stay in that house, the more it drives you towards things like that it wants you to do. And the worst part is it convinces you that you thought of it in the first place.
There's a lot more to explore with what occurred during these events and the timeline as a whole, but this video isn't about that, so I'm covering the most relevant parts. If this story sounds intriguing to you and you'd like me to make a full video on it, then let me know in the comments down below. Moving on though. The next we catch up with William is when he and his other cohorts and acquaintances alike are called back to the mansion by none other than Mark. Unbeknownst to them, it's really a trap set by the actor in order to enact revenge on William for betraying him. Mark intended to fake his death and manipulate everyone, including William, into believing that he was the cause.
The two friends played a game. The most dangerous game.
A drunken game of Russian roulette later, and Mark had succeeded with some help from the dark arts, of course. This happened in the very first episode, and as the blame game began, we got to see just how frantic William became throughout the next 3 chapters of the series.
We've got a murderer.
Holy, quite a storm out there, eh, chaps? What are you doing huddled in here in fear?
He knew he was the cause for all this, but was torn between not caring about someone he hated, but looking out for how it distressed everyone he did love. His childhood friend Damien, his ex-lover Celine, all scrambling to find answers in disbelief and paranoia. He knew he was responsible for it, and so tried to help in his own self-preservative way. During this time, he became closer to us as well, coming to grow fond of us as we were the only neutral party that made him feel just that much less alone at a time when his friends were tearing him and everyone else apart too. However, it all comes to a head when Celine and Damien go missing.
Where's Celine?
She's gone. And so is everyone else.
The two people William cared about the most. Now more desperate than ever to find answers, he clung on to the first piece of evidence he got his hands on, and it just so happened to all point towards Abe, someone William had been cautious of from the very beginning. In the final confrontation, we try and stop William from doing something stupid, and he ends up accidentally shooting us.
Your childhood friend because you can't handle the truth!
Everyone else has left by this point, and anyone who stayed is either nowhere to be seen or dead at the hands of William. A simple manipulation led him to scramble from point to point, trying to save himself and his friends. In doing so, he only lost everyone. You think this is where his story ends, leaving the man to face regret and the consequences of his actions. But no, his fate wasn't just of suffering, but rather madness. And madness isn't reached by killing your friend. It's caused by seeing that same body rise back up after you spent the entire night staring at it in mourning. You don't know what the fuck is happening at this point. You see this body change faces. It goes from us to that of Celine to Damien. Is it all even real? Is it a sick joke of some kind? It must be, right? Mark can't be dead. Neither can Abe nor us. And Damien and Celine must be alive as well. They have to be. No human could figure out that this was actually a much more supernatural plan at play. Who would even reach that conclusion? His brain attempting to fill in the blanks with any logical explanation. William starts to think that it's all a joke. His friends are alive. He just has to find them. He isn't capable of these acts. He'd never do such a thing. It doesn't matter who he kills, they'll be alright, yes? That's what he thinks and that's what he believes as he runs off trying to find everyone.
Where are you? Celine! Oh, it's time to come out now. It was good. You're almost happy.
This path of immense paranoia and escape would eventually have him land on his most famous known alias that I already mentioned earlier, Wilford Warstash. All this time before the series, we thought he was just some psychopath that enjoyed killing, but that was a false narrative. All Wilford is a broken man, knowing he can't comprehend what's occurred and eventually just choosing not to even try anymore, to not care. That leads us to where we'd last seen him, or rather a part of him, in this amalgamation of robotic horror that Wilford referred to as his interview automaton. We see that this animatronic monstrosity operates on a brain scan of Wilford himself. It was constructed using the remnants of Wilford's mind plastered onto it. The more you play along with the automaton's games, the more the facade begins to slowly chip away until a confused figment of William resurfaces. And we see how he is no better than he was at the end of Who Killed. William didn't just go mad out of a lack of understanding. He remembers it all. He may not be aware of the minutiae of it, but he knows his side at least. And that's where the true tragedy lies. Wilford can't accept what has come to pass. He can't accept what he's done or that he's lost the people he cared about. The madness wasn't just inflicted by his mind shattering into a million pieces. It was actually inflicted by him not being able to heal. When faced with dead bodies all around him, surely you'd deflect, try and force all that blame onto something else, anything but you. You can't accept that maybe it was all just you. But deep down you know it's true. Deep down, you know you can't escape it no matter what persona you take up. Wilford is aware of that, but he chooses to repress it even still. But in this animatronic version of himself, that small part finds its way out of the cluttered mess that is William's mind. And when it does, all it can really ask us is,
Was it my fault?
and the thing is, It doesn't matter what you reply with. The animatronic knows. Wilford knows. And this is where the quote comes into play.
If you live in fantasy forever, you'll lose yourself in the story.
If you've enjoyed this video, then please do consider subscribing and commenting down below. I've been covering a lot of YouTubers nowadays, but now I'll be taking this channel into a more horror themed part. And this is me easing you all into it. A mix of both worlds. But I hope you're there for when I truly transition to video game specific horror as well. In the meantime though, here are 2 videos that the algorithm thinks that you'd like. Give them a watch, you won't be disappointed. Until next time, this has been Vexodus, and see ya.